One of the questions I've thought a lot about is, how do you even know when to trust yourself? And this is not because I don't have intuition. Actually, I've realized that my intuition is actually quite strong. The difficult part is not how do you know things. That's not the hard part. It's not knowing things. The hard part is actually trusting my own judgment to, to act on what I already know. And I used to think that having good judgment means that, oh, you're never wrong or anything. But I've started to realize that having good judgment means, something completely different. Judgment is not the same thing as instinct. Instinct is quite immediate. Judgment is something that you have to develop. Judgment is something that happens when you combine, years of experience, keen observation, values, discernment, being able to discern, reflection. When you combine these things, you are able to refine judgment. Judgment is not something that is born or something that just happens. Having good judgment is something that you develop over time. Why do we distrust our own judgment? People don't always distrust themselves because they're incapable. They often distrust themselves because they've learned over time not to be able to trust themselves. And what are the reasons why we often find ourselves in a position where we don't trust what we know, or trust ourselves to, turn what we know into action? The reasons sometimes can go because of fear of being wrong, fear of looking foolish, the fear of disappointing people, sometimes even seeking external validation can be a reason why you don't trust your own self or your own judgment, or believing that someone else knows better than you do. Sometimes you feel like you need more information to know. You need to verify. You're asking, what do you think? What do you think? What we are waiting for is permission. You're waiting for permission. You're waiting for someone to tell you that, oh, it's okay for you to actually act on what you already know. Why we distrust ourselves because you're waiting for permission to believe what we already know. That's often why we distrust ourselves. Pattern recognition comes before perfect explanations. Sometimes you notice something, but you can't fully explain it. But because you can't fully explain it, you don't have the words for it, you dismiss it. But the truth is, in relationships, in friendships, in business, leadership, you notice patterns. You notice something repeatedly. When you notice something happening over and over, that's a pattern. And once you're able to recognize pattern, because you've paid attention, that's all you need. You don't need to actually wait to be able to fully explain, to say, oh, this is what this means, this is the conclusion of this. So pattern recognition usually comes most times before you're able to explain behavior, before you're able to explain something. You're able to notice and say, this particular thing has happened over and over. And how do you recognize these things? It's because you've paid attention. You've paid attention, you notice these things. So when you pay attention, which is what you need to do, pay attention to people, behaviors in business, in relationships and friendships, you are able to notice patterns. And that's all you need. Judgment usually improves through action. Most people think that, oh, I'll trust my judgment when I know it's good, when I'm sure of myself, when I know that, oh, my judgment is perfect, that is when I'm going to start trust it. Well, you improve your judgment by making decisions. That's how you improve your judgment. When you reflect, you learn, you adjust. That's how you improve your judgment. That's how you actually get more and more sure of yourself and more, inclined to follow through with your judgment. So good judgment is not made, it's not like, oh, you don't have to avoid decisions. Good judgment is developed by, when you make decisions based on what you know. I mentioned earlier what good judgment, is. How do you develop good judgment? You develop good judgment through, reflection, values, discernment, pattern recognition, all those things. When you learn, you adjust. That is how you improve your judgment. And how do you actually also keep improving and developing them is through actions. When you follow through, you make decisions, your judgment keeps getting stronger. Being wrong doesn't mean you can't trust yourself. Every decision maker, every smart decision maker, even the most genius of decision makers, has been wrong at some point. So yes, you can actually be wrong. You can say, oh, I've trusted myself once, it didn't work, or I trusted myself this time, it didn't work. But judgment is not about perfection. It's something that is not about, oh, have I ever made a mistake? No, it's, can I actually learn from what has happened? So to trust your judgment, the trust on the judgment is never about, oh, I've never been wrong. It's about, oh, okay, it's about being someone that actually learns from that mistake, someone that learns accurately. So the more you learn, the more you make decisions, you reflect, you learn, you're able to perfect your get better at it, the better your judgment. So being wrong once, being wrong twice doesn't mean that you can't actually trust yourself. You take your time, you reflect, you learn, you adjust. So having good judgment simply is literally about being able to learn accurately. That's literally how you keep trusting yourself and keep trusting your judgment. What does strong judgment actually look like? When you have strong judgment, you're not actually waiting for everyone to see what you see. You know exactly within you. So when you have strong judgment, you're like, I can change my mind when a new evidence appears. When this actually no longer looks like what I think I know, what I knew, then I can change my mind. Strong judgment is I don't need everyone to agree. I don't need everybody to see what I see. I see it. Strong judgment means I don't confuse discomfort with danger. Because there's a difference between discomfort and danger, and we've talked about discomfort not necessarily being uncomfortable is not necessarily a bad thing. Strong judgment helps you know the difference. Strong judgment says I don't ignore consistent patterns. Strong judgment says I don't rush conclusion. Strong judgment says I don't postpone decisions forever. So having good judgment is both confident, it's a very confident thing, and it's also humble. So you're not trying to be like, you don't care about stuff. You do actually definitely care, but you've actually worked it yourself and understood how to actually pay attention, and also how to you've developed your judgment so you can trust yourself. Like I said, you've reflected, you've learned, you've adapted. When you've done this, your judgment keeps getting stronger, and you don't ignore inconsistent patterns or have to agree with what someone else says. You don't care about that kind of stuff. You focus on what you know within yourself that is right and that's correct. That's good judgment. So let's talk about the relationship between having good judgment and trusting yourself. Intuition tells you something. When your intuition tells you something, your good judgment, I'm using the word good judgment now because there can also be bad judgment. Your good judgment evaluates it, and your action tests it. When you make a move, it tests what your intuition told you, what your judgment has evaluated. Then you make an action. Then after you've taken that action, you reflect. That's why you cannot actually neglect or undermine self-reflection. From time to time, you should actually sit down and always reflect on your actions, reflect on what you're doing, reflect on your relationships, your business, your work, your career, everything. Sit down and reflect on what your actions look like in these areas, your financial decisions. You have to reflect. So when your intuition tells you something, your judgment evaluates it, you take action, and this action tests what you know. You sit down and you reflect. So let's even say there's a time you actually made a wrong decision because maybe your judgment was not strong enough or you were not sure and you made a wrong decision. In reflection, you're able to learn accurately to say, this is where I missed it. This is where I can do better. This is how I can do better. And that is what you need to know, because these decisions are made by you. You are not outsourcing your decision making to someone else. It is something that has to come from you. So good judgment actually helps you, builds you to being able to trust yourself, because when you're able to evaluate something truthfully, you're able to act on it and you're able to reflect and refine, because reflection, even when you make good decisions, reflection also helps you, refine better. Self-trust grows from repeatedly moving through this cycle. The more you repeat the cycle, the more you move from, your intuition to judgment to action to reflection, the more you trust yourself, the more your self-trust actually grows. And I mentioned self-trust doesn't come from, I'm always right. No, it comes from trusting yourself to respond well, whether you are right or wrong. You trust yourself that, I can respond well. I know what to do. I know how to handle it. I'm fine regardless. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to handle it. I'm going to know what to do. When I'm wrong, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to get better. I'm going to learn from the situation. When I'm right, I'm also going to get better. I'm also going to know what's good. And I'm going to have them yes, this is an evidence that you can actually trust yourself. So self-trust comes from trusting yourself to respond to a situation well. You trust yourself to respond well, even when you're wrong, even when your heart is broken, even when you go through difficult times, even when challenges are there. You trust yourself to say, I'm going to get through it. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to make decisions for myself that's going to bring me forward. That's what self-trust does, and that's how you improve and develop self-trust. For someone like me that believes so much that believed so much in certainty, I needed to know. So I used to believe that judgment actually meant becoming certain, like, oh, having good judgment meant I had certainty. But I realized that no, that's not actually what good judgment is about. Having good judgment particularly means becoming honest. Becoming honest about what I know, becoming honest about what I don't, becoming honest enough to act, becoming honest to actually change my mind, being honest enough to also keep learning, being honest to say, oh, I'm still learning this, I'm learning that, I don't know this, I know this, honest enough to change my mind. So the goal is not about that, oh, I'm becoming someone that can never questions themselves. No, the goal here, the goal for self-trust and improving and developing your judgment is about someone who doesn't constantly dismiss themselves. That's what the goal here is. It's about you not dismissing yourself. So when you develop good judgment, that's how it keeps helping you actually like repeatedly building self-trust. When you repeatedly go through the process of your intuition, moving to your judgment, moving to your action and reflection, when you learn, when you adapt, that's how like you trust yourself enough to not dismiss yourself, dismiss what you know, dismiss the patterns that you've seen. That's how you keep trusting yourself, and that's how your judgment also develops. Thank you very much for sitting with me today. If this conversation resonates with you in any way, please stay with me. See you next week. Bye.